All right, here we go. Welcome back to Tuesday night's summer session with Get It Right and his 10-week course. Tonight's the second session with Free Kick Infractions. Ken Aiden? Ken, are you there?
Say again?
All right, so, hey, Bob. So, yeah, I was trying to get a hold of Ken. I guess he's having technical difficulties. But tonight, session number 2 with Get It Right, Bob Arnone. If this is your first time on a Get It Right webinar, Bob is owner and founder of Get It Right. He started officiating in 2001 in Alabama. He's a back judge. He's done multiple district and state championship games. He's also an instructor for the Alabama Football Associations, and he started Get It Right in 2012. He was designated as a game changer in officiating industry by NASO and has been presenting at the NASO Summit since 2014. He has partnered with Mike Pierre in the Battlefield to Ballfield since 2016. Get It Right has clients in all 50 states and 15 countries. He also has a half a page in July's referee.com magazine, page 48, I believe, with his software program. So this is a pretty good software, and really grateful for Bob for giving the New Mexico Officials Association football group this free training every Tuesday. So it's all yours, Bob. Free kick infractions.
Okay. Start doing the share screen here. Okay, we cooking? Got the Get It Right screen up?
Yep, we got it.
Okay, great. All right. So what we wanted to talk about tonight is free kicks and free kick infractions. A lot of times officials will talk about the fact that if anything's ever going to go wrong, it's going to happen during the kicking game. So let's go ahead and talk about that tonight. Something I just want to show you all that might be familiar with the Get It Right program. Thank you for being loyal clients. If you haven't seen the 2020 version yet, all the rules have always been lined up in alphabetical order, and that's been pretty convenient. But then we were getting requests to try to lay it out in like the rule book view, so we have that now this year. So tonight we're going to talk about some free kick infractions. So that's in Rule 6-1. The nice thing about the free kick infractions is that typically you don't have a whole bunch of them happening at the same time. So if you can partition those in your mind, it makes it a little bit easier for you to figure out what's about to happen and things like that. So let's start here looking at 6-1-4 that says that at the time the ball is kicked, there needs to be at least 4 K players on either side of that kicker. So depending on the mechanics that you have, somebody is out there talking to that kicker as the kicking teams are starting to come and get lined up. So we've been asked to make sure it's a legal ball, make sure you got the federation mark on it. That's also a time that I remind the kicker, wait for that whistle from the white hat before you kick. This kid, we're all waiting for this opening kickoff to happen this season. Things are trending in that direction, so this could happen on schedule. Well, that kicker is probably pretty excited too. He's got his girlfriend and his family up in the stands. He's all jacked up, ready to do something great. And surprisingly enough, there's at least one or two times during the course of the season that kicker decides to kick the ball before that ready for play signal is given. Um, okay, so that gives us the opportunity to get the kicking team and the receiving team all lined up. So we have them here like this. For some reason, over the course of history, kickers like to raise their hand to let people know they're fixing to kick the ball. No requirement to do that, but there's our guy there with his hand in the air. So then what we see happen is this. The team is trying to do something slick, something fancy. And what actually happened there is while we thought this player with his hand in the air was going to be the one to kick the ball, the guy next to him does. So again, it's the time that the ball is kicked that there needs to be 4 players on either side of the kicker. So what we have here is just 3 on this side. Now, this is a dead ball play. Part of what the Federation wants us to do is recognizing that a free kick is one of the more dangerous plays that we have during the course of a game. So we don't want these kids flying into each other only to stop the play or end the play, bring back and have them do it all over again. So when we see something like this, we want to kill that immediately. One more point on mechanics relative to this. I don't know what you all have for mechanics. Here in Alabama, they talk about the referee being the one to make that call, and this is what he's saying. So bless his heart, if he can figure out that there were just 3 on the one side of that kicker there, good for him. When I'm teaching back judges, or if I'm teaching anything about the kicking game, I'll tell those officials up here on the receiving team's free kick line to kind of keep an eye open for something like that as well. Really, what's happening with that official on the receiving team's free kick line is waiting to see if those receivers are going to encroach. I seldom see that happening, but still, it's at the same time that that official might have a pretty good view, still watching what his front line is doing and being able to keep one of his eyes on whether or not that's going to be a legal kick right there. So something to think about, something to talk about with your crews, something to talk about in your association about how you want to handle some of these things. So we'll go there to a similar kind of formation here. We got the player who we think is going to be the kicker. He's got his hand in the air. They learned their lesson the last time that there needed to be at least 4 on either side. So the way that they're lined up right now, they've got 5 players on either side. So life is good. Wait for the ready for play whistle to be sounded. And then that same guy decides to kick the ball. They're trying to do something slick. The problem, though, is that we have one player more than 5 yards deep than their free kick line. So even though that kicker, had he been the one to kick it, is allowed to be more than 5 yards back, if he is more than 5 yards back, he's got to be the one that kicks that ball. So again, kind of pay attention to that. Again, that's one that some mechanics say that they want the referee to try to make that call. This one for sure, he'll never know that player is more than 5 yards back. So all those officials that we have up in that on K's free kick line and R's free kick line, watch for something like that. There are 7-man mechanics that have the umpire or an official at least back there with that kicker. So clearly that'd be a call that he could easily make. Okay, we'll step back out of this one. And let's look at encroachment here. Simple enough. If you have a player who is beyond that free kick line before the ball is kicked, that's encroachment. And again, we want to kill that. But I want to talk a little bit here about philosophy as well. Let me see if I can cheat this forward here a little bit. So you have that player, breaking the plane, or maybe he's on the line at the same time the ball is kicked. Now, the way this animation is set up, that's not happening that way. But let's assume the ball is being kicked right here. Is this the time that you want to call encroachment or not? And some of the philosophy that I tend to hear is let's at least make sure that that guy has 1 foot clearly out there beyond the free kick line before we call that dead. So again, one of those things to talk about in your crew, something to talk about there in your association as to what you're going to allow happen for something like that. It's a game management kind of a thing. How much advantage did the kicking team gain if that player was just breaking the plane at the time that the ball was kicked? So I'll just leave that for discussion later on. Okay, free kick out of bound enforcement. So we'll do a complete step through on this one. So here we have the ball getting kicked out of bounds. It was untouched by R. Rolls out at about the 46-yard line. So the receiving team, the offended team, has a couple of options here. They can go ahead and back K up 5 yards and have them re-kick. Or they can just go ahead and take the ball where it went out of bounds, or take the ball where it went out of bounds and move it up 5 yards, 1st and 10 from there. Next, you're going to see the ball getting kicked, and it drops down here about the 15-yard line. So the options again, receiving team can go ahead and back up the kicking team again, 5 yards, have them re-kick, or they can take the ball 25 yards from the previous spot, which would put it there at the 35-yard line. Here we have the ball going out about the 31-yard line. Now we need to do a little bit of math. So they always have the option of taking the ball 25 yards from the previous spot from where the ball was kicked, which would put it at the 35. They could take the ball right there where it went out of bounds, or right there where the ball went out of bounds, they can add 5 yards to it and put it out there at the 36. So typically what has happened to us on the sidelines is whoever's on the sideline where the receiving team is, we would get a hold of the coach and say, okay, coach, where do you want the ball to be spotted? And easily enough, if it was if the ball never made it up to the 35-yard line, we can say, coach, do you want it here? If it went beyond the 35, hey, coach, do you want it to 35 or do you want him to have it re-kick? Well, now we have a couple additional options to talk to the coach about. So again, think about what happened. Think about where the ball is. Only present those options to the coach that or the most reasonable ones, and you'll see what he wants to do. Now, the other thing we have to remember is all my graphics right now are based on the ball having been kicked from the 40-yard line. Don't get into your head all the time that the ball's going to be spotted at the 35, 25 yards from where the ball was kicked. Because if there was a penalty uh, on the extra point or during the touchdown, and they elect to enforce that on the subsequent kickoff, uh, that ball is going to be placed somewhere other than the 40-yard line. So think about that before you go running up to the coach saying, "Hey, do you want it to 35?" Because it could wind up being someplace else. Okay, let's go to the pop-up kick. Put this in a. I'm sorry, say again. Okay, we'll watch this pop-up kick here. I've got this on playthrough, so it's going to happen kind of quick. You watch closely. That ball's going to get kicked into the ground and then go up into the air. And the way that the Federation has the rule written is if that ball is going immediately into the air, similar to how it would look if the ball was kicked into the air right off the tee. So how does that look? So if you look at the right side here, they're kicking that ball straight up. Some places call that a pooch kick. So you see that. And on the left, you're going to see them bounce it off. So the way the rule is written, it does not say how high that ball has to go. What we all need to remember is this is a safety-related issue that the kicking team can recover that ball once it's hit the ground and gone 10 yards in either order. So what the teams had figured out is, boy, if I can just bounce that off the ground and keep it kind of short, have it go just beyond that front line of receivers, I can have somebody down there eligible to get that ball. And if there's somebody there trying to catch it, we can take them out. And that presented a safety issue for that kid who's looking up in the air, not knowing that somebody is about to deck him. So again, this is one of those that needs to be killed right away. If we think that ball is going up in the air high enough where it's going to put somebody at risk, then we're going to call it and be ready to explain that. It says, yeah, that ball went high enough that it looked like it came straight off the tee, and kill that right away. Now, for those officials that are on K's free kick line, this could be one of those opportunities where you could have a player like this guy here, maybe blocking your field of view just when that ball's being kicked. So again, when I teach this, I talk to officials that are on ours free kick line, and again, I ask them to keep an eye on that kick. There's nothing wrong with them calling that pop-up kick as well. They may have a better view of that than what that official on K's free kick line might have. So pay attention to those. Watch out for that. I'm going to jump into mechanics here real quick. Only the drop down here. Because again, there's nothing wrong with that kicker bouncing the ball off the field there. So you can see how this one bounces around. It's not going that high. So on an onside kick, this is typically what they want to try to accomplish. If that ball decides to bounce high on that second bounce, that's okay. The pop-up kick is that kicker driving that ball off the tee into the ground and immediately into the air. That's what we want to avoid. And I want to talk one more, not necessarily a kick infraction, but it's something that can happen during the kicking game. I do not have that animated yet, but pay attention to rule 9-3-7. we had a team in Alabama that we were working with during one of our state camps, and they were showing what they wanted to do for the onside kick. And I had the opportunity to listen to what that special teams coach was talking about. And what he was doing was designating each one of his players, uh, this one, and this one. Their job was to go down and take out certain players on the receiving team. And the other two, their job was to try to recover that ball after it went 10 yards. And what that was setting up is as these players are starting to come into the neutral zone, who's the one initiating the block? And that's where 9-3-7 comes into play. That no members of the kicking team can initiate contact inside the neutral zone unless a member of the receiving team somewhere along that line initiated that block, or if the kicking team is then eligible to recover that ball. In other words, if that ball hits one of the members of the receiving team, then the kicking team's eligible to do that. That's got to be a tough call to make. Because how will we know that when that kicking team member was the one initiating that contact when there's a whole lot of other humanity that may be happening on the other side of the field? But that rule's in there. Watch for that. It's something that could happen. So any officials that we have up there in the neutral zone, you need to be ready for that. Especially if we don't think there's going to be an onside kick that occurs. You need to always be prepared for that. There's nothing that says that a kicking team can't do that at any time during the game. So obviously we want to be alert all through the game. But when it comes to the kicking game, turn up that alert meter if you got it. So that's all I had planned to talk about tonight. I'm open for any questions or anything that may be in the chat box.
There's nothing in the chat box right now, but if you want to unmute yourself and ask a question, we have about 5 minutes for questions.
This is Ken. Bob, sorry about my audio earlier. My question is, when we have an obvious onside kick, the mechanic changes a little bit, and that we don't allow the kicking team to really cross that pane of glass per se. You want to talk a little bit about that, how tight it gets?
That's a new mechanic for me, but I think that's a great one right there. I guess the only thing I would say is that if you see, there are times as a back judge, we've got I've got the kicking team free kick line. If I see a player that's been close, I try to get word to the sideline there after that play, or even before that next kickoff. Say, hey, coach, number 10, he's pretty quick right there. You may want to tell him to watch that. Then if you think you've got somebody like that, that would be a good reminder if you think you're getting ready for that onside kick. I can see where you would have that philosophy. I kind of like that idea. All I can say is here in Alabama, we haven't adopted that. Kind of like that though.
Hey, Bob, I have a question for you.
Shoot.
I want to make sure I heard you correctly, but between the pop-up kick and the pooch kick, do you kill them both? I know the pop-up kick we do, but I wanted to make sure I heard you correctly.
Yeah, so, the pooch kick you do not. That's still a live, legitimate kick.
Thank you very much. I came in a little bit late, and I just want to make sure I got it right. Thank you very much.
Now, at the if we stick to the schedule that we laid out for these 10 webinars, on the 28th of July, I'm going to talk about kick catch interference. And that's when that pooch kick will start causing some issues.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. So, if nobody else has any questions, these are 30-minute mini webinars to start getting back into the rule book before the season starts. Hopefully the season starts for high school. I did receive the NFHS slideshow, the PowerPoint that they're putting out for 2020 and the emphasis and the rules changes. I'll send that out to this group right after this, and also attach a link to take a quiz, to watch some video and take a quiz, mini quiz on holding, which will be our topic next Tuesday on June 30th. So it's just a, we're not keeping score or anything like that, but just something to look at. But I'll attach that link. That was sent to me a couple days ago by the High School Officials Association, I believe in Los Angeles, California. They put together that presentation on holding. So if you guys are interested, just take a quick look at it. But next week will be holding topic that Bob will present on Tuesday night. And Bob, any last comments before we go?
No, thank you again for allowing me to participate in these things. It helped me as much as it's helping you all, I hope.
Okay, there.
Thank you, Bob.
Yeah,
Appreciate you.
There was one
Right.
there was one comment before we go that just came up in the chat room. They're asking about where to spot the ball on the kick out of bounds. Hash is nearest to out of bounds, not middle of the field. So if there's a penalty out of bounds, you want to go to the hash mark. I believe that's a mechanic that one of the umpires is questioning.
I guess I'm not fully understood. So yeah, I mean
So if you have a free kick and it's a touchback, we're going to spot the ball in the middle of the field in the number 3 position, I believe.
Actually, they get the choice, right?
Right.
If it's
right.
Yeah,
Right.
I get the choice, but if it's a
if it's a kick out of bounds,
hold on.
if it's a kick out of bounds, there is no choice. It has to go to the hash nearest the infraction.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to make sure I understood the question or the comment in the chat room too before I got off for the night. So if
All right.
anybody else has anything else, Bob, again, we appreciate your 30 minutes to give the explanation on these rules and just to get us back in the rule book during the summer and get us ready for the season this fall.
You bet. All right. You all have a good week.
Thank you, sir.